Let's go to San Francisco, where Shahid Buttar is standing by. He is running for Congress as a socialist to replace Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Welcome back, Shahid.
Thanks for having me, David. It's great to be with you.
You're in a little trouble, and you've agreed to come on the show. I'm going to state up front that I support you. I think that if Nancy Pelosi is willing to ignore the accusations of Tara Reade to defeat a horrible president named Donald Trump, I think you get a mulligan. I think whether or not you're guilty of sexually harassing as opposed to sexually assaulting somebody, as Joe Biden is, it's more important to get rid of Nancy Pelosi first, and then we can address whatever crimes you have committed. The most important thing right now is to get you in Congress. And then once we have that seat, then we can decide whether or not to get rid of you. Are you accused of a crime?
I haven't been, and I would just say that to your point, I would not seek a mulligan. I have been falsely accused of a thing I haven't done. And if I was the character that was constructed in the allegations made toward me, I frankly wouldn't be running for office in the first place. But yeah, I have been accused falsely, and appreciate the opportunity to help set the record straight.
So let's start with the comedian who claims about a decade ago, how many years ago did she claim that you taunted her because she wouldn't have sex with you?
Her claim she made in the last few months, and I think it references a supposed event in the 2000s. The last time I saw Liz was in that era.
Right. And she claims, as I understand it, that you were a creep, that you would go to parties, corner her, flirt with her, aggressively want to have sex with her. She didn't like being alone with you at parties. And then when you were involved with another woman, you said publicly that Liz needed to have sex with somebody. You made fun of her for being celibate.
That's the allegation, and all of it is untrue. All of her accusations relate to social settings, which is to say there would have been other people around, and a bunch of those people wrote a letter to explain their established understanding that none of these things that Liz is alleging have ever happened. I only have my own experience with Liz. The first time Liz accused me of something, it was murder in 2015. And then sometime after that, she started accusing me of human trafficking. And then more recently, this harassment allegation appeared. And all I can say about its veracity, I've resolved not to impugn the credibility of my accuser. So I'm not going to say anything else outside my experience with my accuser, but I will say—
Do you have that in writing, that she accused you of murder and human trafficking? Where
it's all public. It's all public. I mean,
but did she put it in writing?
It's all on social media. Yeah, she made these accusations publicly. And this is one reason why the initial round of press reports about this story were so irresponsible, because they didn't report on, frankly, any facts. They only reported on accusations, and they ignored all the facts. And I'll just say again, I've never harassed, certainly Liz Croyden. She claims that I expressed interest in her sexually over a period of time. I've never had any interest in Liz Croyden. And the words that she attributes to me are ones that, according to journalists who've written other stories, are words that she has said to other people. So she's literally accusing me of things that she has done to other people. No one's ever accused me of anything like this.
Are there any criminal complaints against you when it comes to sexual assault?
None.
None. Have there been any HR complaints leveled against you in workplaces?
Never in 20 years.
You've never been brought in by your boss or somebody from HR and they said to you, you know, we just got a complaint, dial it back a little, this is a workplace?
Not around misogyny. I've certainly had talkings to in the workplace around, like, strategic questions or
behavior.
That we need to troubleshoot.
But behavior, never.
No, absolutely not. I would describe one reason that these accusations have hurt my feelings so much, frankly, is that I'm not the character constructed. If I was, I frankly think it would not bother me nearly as much. But they have, frankly, really forced me to a great deal of self-reflection. These aren't easy things to be described as, certainly in the press. And I have, just in the awareness that I might have a blind spot, that maybe there's some set of, things to which my privileges, blind me. I've checked in with former colleagues. I've checked in with people I've known, people I work with today, and none of those people have been able to ratify what I read about in the press from former colleagues who never shared those concerns when they were with me. And just to lay out what happened here, a number of my former staff who left the campaign, and
we'll get to that in a second. I want to just stay with Liz for a little while.
Okay. Well, I just want to explain why we're talking about Liz. My former staff brought her story to light, and it was her story that seems to have swayed them in thinking me to be, a person that I'm not.
Right. Again, are there any other women who have come forward since Liz came forward to say that you sexually harassed, sexually taunted them?
No, absolutely not.
I will say that my colleagues, there are no women, there are no ex-lovers, there's nobody who stepped forward and said, I don't want to say anything, but since Liz came forward, I did have a bad experience with Shad.
That's right. No one said that, though.
Not a single woman.
Many people have claimed there to be multiple allegations, but the only person who's actually alleged anything is Liz. That's one reason I'm so frustrated, is that a false accusation has set off any number of people into alleging supposed patterns that simply don't exist. There are no accusations. The one journalist who's explored the issue here, Ryan Grimm, is an editor at The Intercept, the DC bureau chief. He published the story about Tara Reade. So he is someone very inclined to believe legitimate survivors. And he has said publicly that Liz's accusation is not a credible one for any number of many reasons, again, most of which I won't get into, but have been thoroughly documented on the public record.
Are you married?
I'm not.
Do you date?
I do.
Are you going to run into the same trouble that the mayor of Holyoke has run into?
I think
by
not.
Going online. And is there a problem with a teacher or a politician dating people who are students or who work in government? Because that's the problem that the mayor of Holyoke has run into.
Right. I think the concern around him is around power imbalances. And I don't date online. The partners in my life are well established. And that's not an issue that I see myself encountering. I will say, to the same extent that he was thrown under the bus due basically to an effort to construct a narrative different from the facts, and that his accusers weaponized homophobia in the service of that effort. I've encountered something very similar. It's not homophobia, it's more Islamophobia. But I similarly can relate to being targeted by a coordinated effort to construct a false narrative.
Right. He's running against Neil, who's chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, one of the most powerful men in Washington, D.C. He's a Democrat who has a lot of money. And with the mayor of Holyoke, we're discovering that some operatives may have been involved with this slander against the mayor of Holyoke. You're running against Nancy Pelosi. The only reason Nancy Pelosi is Speaker of the House is because she has a lot of money that she disperses. She and her husband have accrued a real estate portfolio. As far as I can tell, it's close to $100 million. She's a landlord in San Francisco. She's got to go. She, as far as I'm concerned, is the problem with the Democratic Party. It's money, corporate money. She has to defeat you. You're her biggest threat. Is that correct?
I'm the first Democrat in 33 years to reach a November election facing her. So she is never in a generation since she went to Congress in 1987 ever faced a campaign that is mounting objectively the strongest effort that she's ever faced. And I'm looking forward to replacing her in November.
Right. But she has to destroy you to prove her bona fides as an alpha dog in the Democratic Party. It's not good enough for her to win. She has to destroy you.
All I'll say to that is that while the smear in Alex's case is very well established, plenty of documents have emerged connecting the Democratic establishment to the smear campaign. In my case, it seems to be a product of professional campaign operatives who are scared of the local progressive establishment.
Or just spending money. In other words, what is her war chest versus yours?
We've raised $1.3 million in this race. It's twice what the high watermark of any previous challenger has been able to raise. Pelosi's got 15 million. She's spending $1 million a month on Facebook ads alone. So we're certainly vastly outgunned. The point I just want to make here
is hang on for one second. So you're vastly outgunned, and she has people working for her who make a lot of money, who are thinking of their next job, and they want to, sometimes you hire a bodyguard and he punches somebody out just to prove how loyal and good he is for his next job. Is it conceivable that because she has so much money, that there's some people working for her who want to flex some muscle and show what they can do for the next election cycle? Isn't that how these things work?
It's certainly possible. I can't prove it. I will
note. You said
that
you have a paper trail showing that Democratic operatives are involved in Liz's accusations.
Yes, that we have.
And what is that paper trail? Can you name names? Who are the people who are revealed in this?
There are texts which have been reported. I'm not trying to accuse my accusers, so I'd rather not do that. But I will say, I'll name supporters. One of my supporters, an Afro-Latina grandmother here in town, her name's Gloria Berry, has described what I've gone through as an attack by people leveraging racial tropes to advance a narrative that supports the city's progressive establishment. And just to be clear, I'm running against that establishment. The establishment doesn't like me, but I can't necessarily pin the establishment to our experience. The documents that emerged were shared with volunteers. Multiple volunteers came forward after the press reports with the accusations towards me, explaining that these volunteers had been recruited by my former staff to participate in what one of those volunteers describes in the text messages as a smear campaign. And those texts have been reported on the Humanist Report. My colleagues publicly have sort of admitted that they reached out to Liz. So the reason that we're hearing about Liz Croyden is because my former staff worked to bring her voice to the press, even though her accusations have been found to be lacking any credibility. And it's difficult to describe whose experience became the pretext for whose experience to then find its way to the press. Neither Liz's accusations nor those by my former staff, I think, alone would have been treated as credible. But the press in San Francisco and The Intercept, without a regard to the facts, took those two independent things as corroborating each other. And that's part of the reason why, frankly, so many people in San Francisco have been so quick to race to judgment.
Right.
As a man of color.
So let me salute you for staying in the race. And that's why I wanted to have you on the show, because I know that if I were falsely accused of sexual assault or sexual harassment, I would stay in the race and fight for my name. Unless I was guilty, unless other women were coming forward. I have zero respect for Al Franken, who used to be my hero, because he left and now he calls himself a victim of the cancel culture. Al Franken is a fraud and a bully, and enough women came forward to say there was inappropriate touching, and that's borderline assault. And the fact that Al Franken didn't stay in his seat and fight for his name shows that he is a coward and a bully and plays the victim, and he's guilty. And he's guilty. He didn't stay and fight for his name.
The only thing
and he has a million excuses for why he quit. He said he was bullied out of the Senate by Chuck Schumer. He didn't go before the ethics committee. He didn't fight for his name. So I have zero respect for Al Franken, who was my hero. And you, in some ways, even though you're younger than I am, you're a hero of mine. And I was pissed off when I found out about this.
Thank you.
And
That means a lot.
And I'm sorry?
I appreciate that. That's kind of you to say.
I was pissed off when I found out about it, and I thought it's hopeless that there's no way we can defeat the Democrats because of human nature, and that you're in many ways being held to a higher standard because you're a democratic socialist and you have to be beyond repute. Have you lost the endorsement of the Democratic Socialists of America?
Yeah, two different DSA chapters without any meaningful interest in facts or witnesses or truth or innocence or guilt, sort of privilege the accusations as presumptively true. And I'm far from the first man of color to be presumptively judged on the basis of
your religion. What is your religion?
If I may just finish my thought.
Yes.
I am far from the first man of color to be falsely accused and presumed to be guilty of a false accusation by a white woman. I'm very grateful, frankly, that the consequences haven't been any worse for me. You know, other men of color who've been falsely accused bear far sharper consequences. The worst I've had to deal with is some observers leaping to conclusions that aren't borne by the facts. And while it is disappointing for our campaign to have lost those endorsements, I do think ultimately the bigger story there is the emergence of institutional racism within parts of the left that I think sincerely want to fight it, but seem not to be sufficiently sophisticated to recognize when it emerges within their ranks. And as the target of that process, it is more than a little disappointing.
Yes. What is your religion?
I'm Muslim.
You're Muslim. And what is your ethnicity?
I'm an Ahmadi Muslim, which is a sect of Islam derided as heretical in Muslim countries. It's the reason that my family left Pakistan before I was born.
So you're Pakistani. And there's some built-in prejudice in this country against the Pakistanis because they harbored Osama bin Laden.
Well, I would say the bigger piece here is just Muslim men and misogyny. I mean, something like half the reason that we've been at war in Afghanistan for the last 20 years, supposedly, is for some version of feminist project to liberate women in that country. And that is exactly the trope, I think, that leads a lot of people to think a brown man with a beard must be guilty of these things if he's accused. And, you know, one of the things that's so particularly frustrating for me in the wake of all this is that many observers have seized on the accusations constructed by my former colleagues as if this is a dynamic between workers and a boss, when in fact, what the volunteers have revealed, the multiple volunteers who my former colleagues tried to recruit, is that what this is actually about are professional campaign operatives trying to kick an immigrant socialist down the stairs and construct a false narrative, weaponizing this trope about misogyny in Muslims. And
so why aren't you pulling an Al Franken and just saying it's not worth it? I'm not going to win. It's Nancy Pelosi. I'm going to get out. I have a Stanford law degree. I can go work for a firm, rehabilitate my name. This just isn't worth it. Why are you staying in?
You know, to be honest, I've asked myself that question many times in the last 2 weeks. And I'll be honest with you, I don't have a good answer. I mean, I'm not doing this. I'm not running for office to serve myself. If I was interested in my career and if I prioritized my career, I would have stayed at EFF. I'd be making more money. There's vastly more job security in it. You know, I took on a pretty substantial political risk to run the steepest, most uphill race in U.S. politics. And, you know, this experience to be falsely accused and judged without any pretense of interest in the facts does frankly incline me to go back to my life, understanding what running for office has entailed. I can't sincerely recommend it to anyone else.
You're a graduate of Stanford Law, which I do hold against you, and I'm being serious. You know that. No, I do think it was a youthful indiscretion and calls your judgment into question.
Right.
And,
we talked about this, and I just say,
and I'll get to it in a second because your staff did quit on you, and it suggests that Stanford trained you to have an imperious nature and to look at people as either above me or below me. That's a whole other issue. I support you. I want you to defeat Nancy Pelosi. I think Nancy Pelosi is the problem. She did not bring Medicare up for a vote. Medicare for All hasn't even gotten a vote in the House. The Republicans voted 1,000 times when Boehner and Paul Ryan were running the show. They voted 1,000 times to kill Obamacare. We can't even get the Democratic Party on record as to whether or not they support Medicare for all.
They're on the record. They're on the record as opposing it. That's the Democratic Party.
Yeah, but we can't get the individual Congress people to vote. So we know what we're up against. Nancy Pelosi is a disgrace. She's a neoliberal lapdog, and she, along with Steny Hoyer and Chuck Schumer and Barack Obama and Bill Clinton, have destroyed the Democratic Party. Destroyed it. She's got to go. And they have a lot of money. And there's no doubt in my mind that this woman who made the accusation against you, in my mind, something got misconstrued. Something happened. It could have been resolved privately. What is the way to resolve something like that? You're a graduate of Stanford Law. How do we resolve this? You're at a party. I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt now that you had a couple of drinks, you were smoking dope. Do you drink? Do you smoke dope? Just, you can say no comment. You can plead the fifth.
I am a cannabis user.
You are a cannabis user. Why don't you say that proudly?
I do. It's just not relevant to the question at hand, and it's not something I've particularly talked about. So I'm a little caught off guard.
Okay, good. Is it conceivable that you were smoking dope that night and you don't remember what happened, or that your personality changes? Is it a Jekyll and Hyde thing, but maybe you were a little more aggressive? I know that pot makes people very aggressive and violent. I'm joking.
Yeah, just to be clear, it doesn't obviously make people violent. 2, there was no that night. 3, any night that she might have been referring to, it's not unlikely in a social setting that I might have been. And 4, just to go back to the point, I didn't do any of those things. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And no other women,
to your point, I think
no other women have come forward. Again, no other women have accused you of this. Let's say that.
Another way for me to put that is I haven't harassed anyone, neither Liz Croydon nor anyone else.
Okay. So there have been no other accusations. There's this one woman who feels, is she accusing you of sexual assault?
She's not, but my former staff says that she has. So that's a point I'm trying to make here, is that in addition to bringing Liz's story forward, my former colleagues have also actively continued to misrepresent it and inflate it beyond even the false accusation. And that's one of the things that's so, frankly, disappointing from a racial aspect, is that any accusation towards a person of color is not only presumed to be true, but then inflated, extended, presumed to be part of a pattern when there's no even incident here.
What is the proper way moving forward when a man is accused of sexual harassment at a party? Because this does happen. Every woman
has experienced
has been sexually harassed, not just once, but every time they step out on the street, they are sexually harassed. Every woman has been sexually assaulted. That's what I've learned in the past 3 years. Every woman has been sexually assaulted. Men are a problem. Men are a problem.
No question about that.
American men are a problem. And it's interesting because you're a democratic socialist, and I wanted to have a conversation with you originally about class consciousness, solidarity. This is a political issue. This is a serious political issue. And it's one of the reasons Donald Trump is collecting so much money from grassroots organizations, not the billionaire class. He's getting money. I was looking at his war chest. Most of his money, believe it or not, comes from kind of like the same people who give to you and Bernie. It's incels, men who hate women and women who hate themselves and are involved.
I don't think that's Bernie's base, and it's not mine.
Oh, no, I know. Well, I know that, but it's a part of the base. It's not a part of the base. You don't know that. So my question to you is, moving forward, how do men and women resolve this? Do they go to the cops? we keep hearing about defunding the cops. Well, if a woman, I support defunding the cops, but if a woman is being harassed by a man who she doesn't feel safe, he keeps calling her, what should a woman do when the cops say, well, has he come to your house? No, he's just writing me notes. He's just leaving threatening messages, or when I see him on campus or when I see him at work. I guess you go to HR, right? That's one way to read. What is
in the
legal remedy to all this for women?
Yeah, in the workplace, we have sexual harassment laws. They require having a supervisory relationship to someone.
Right. What is the legal remedy for Liz at a party when you're around a group of friends?
So I'm sorry. In a situation where there has been no harassment, I don't think there is an appropriate.
But had you been, again, I don't want to have you say something and then give people fodder to take it out of context. So,
okay.
David Feldman is accused of going to a party. David Feldman is coming on to a woman. He's misreading her cues. She feels threatened. He's too stupid to know that she's feeling threatened. He's filled
in that setting. I would hope that the hosts might intervene. And
right, but what is the legal remedy? What is the remedy for women? It feels like we haven't solved this as a nation, I'm beginning to realize it is a political issue because nobody's really offering a remedy for all this.